Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan. We're glad that you're here, whether you're listening and watching us live or listening and watching us not live. We're so happy to be here. We want to remind you again today that is a pre-recorded show. Even though you're watching it live, it's still pre-recorded. And we miss your questions and comments. As always, like, follow, share. We have a great show for you today.
Yes, we do. And just a reminder, we have a store now, right?
Yeah.
And one of our newer items that we have in the store, one of many new designs, is Keep On Reading. And it's kind of designed after the Keep On Truckin' from the 60s, but a little more hip, I think, than that. But at any rate, drop by the store at indiebooksource.com and check out all the reading-themed items that we have there. Tonight we want to welcome Liese Sherwood Fabre, multi-genre author, but she's got a lot of interesting work to talk about, so we're going to bring her in right now. Hello, Liese.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
We're really good, Lisa. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How's the Tampa Bay? How's the weather there?
We're finally getting some cool weather.
Finally.
Oh,
It's been
we
above
have
average.
a lot of rain. Not rain. We have a lot of wind today.
We do
Yesterday
also.
and today.
We do too, and it isn't going to barely make 80 today.
Which is really cool for us.
Which is cool. Need a jacket.
I wore jeans out today when we took our walk, which I haven't done in a long time.
I
Where
live
do you
in
live?
Texas, so I know.
you're in
I
Texas.
live
Okay.
in North Texas. Yeah, so I know hot.
There you go.
You know, humid, but I know hot.
There you go.
Uh-huh.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's our dog.
There's our dog piping up there, making herself known.
I know I would like to ask you a question.
Sure.
How did you get interested in writing, and was it your first thing that you did, or did you have another career and then you decided to write? Or
Sure. Well, I always knew I was destined to be a writer when I was in the second grade and got an A+ on a story I wrote about Dick, Jane, and Sally's ruined picnic. I've always enjoyed writing. I can remember in high school, even the Scholastic magazine. I'm sure you probably remember those from your days. Scholastic magazine used to have a student writing contest, and I would enter, even though I hadn't written anything for school. I would still enter. I never won, and I learned a lot about word count back then. I had no idea what word count was, but I had my little sister count every word in my stories. I didn't know that you could basically estimate the words by knowing that 250 words to a typewritten page.
yes.
My my little sister, she was so good. She counted out 10 words and made a mark, counted out 10 words and made a mark. And I'd add them up, all those 10 word pieces together. God bless her. I have a PhD in sociology, and I worked for more than 30 years with the federal government. I worked in a couple of different agencies. I worked at Health and Human Services. I worked at the Census Bureau. I worked at the Foreign Assistance arm of the U.S. government, which is the Agency for International Development, and got to live in a few different countries. And when we were living in Mexico, I got a copy of Isaac Asimov's magazine, and that was the first time I'd really written anything in years, since probably high school or college. And I read some and I thought, I have a story. I have an idea for a story. And I sat down and typed out a story. And back then we really didn't have computers like we have nowadays. I had a little Apple that my husband had gotten because it was a little more portable than those big IBM computers. And I mean, you had to save it on a floppy disk. There wasn't even, there was no memory in those computers. And I wrote it and I sent it off and almost immediately got a rejection. And that was okay. It taught me a couple of things. One is I needed to study more about what I was doing. And but even more important, I learned that I could do it. I could write a story. And I had young children at that point. So we would get home, I would put them to bed, and then I would write after they were in bed. And so I learned a lot from that. And then my husband was given an assignment. He's an international consultant, and he was given an assignment in Russia. This was shortly after the fall of the Soviet Union. And so I joined him in Russia, and that was, we were there for 5 years. And that was where I really started writing seriously. I finished one novel and I started a second based on something that I heard about in Russia.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was that the Iranians were recruiting Russian scientists who had lost their jobs with the fall of the Soviet Union, and they were recruiting these scientists. And I wanted to figure out how why a scientist would accept a position like that. So I created an unemployed microbiologist who had a sick daughter. And that's the basis for Saving Hope.
That's wonderful. That's really fascinating. Now, where did you live specifically in Russia?
Moscow.
And when you lived in Mexico?
Mexico City. And my husband is actually Mexican. We met on a blind date in 1977. So we've known each other for quite a number of years. We've been married more than 40. So, yeah.
Yeah, I lived in Mexico.
Oh, really?
In Guadalajara.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've been there, but didn't get the never. In particular, I remember Guanajuato. We went to Guanajuato. We went on a trip once, and we went to Guanajuato, and we went to Guadalajara. He had an aunt. Well, actually, it's a great aunt who were twins that lived in Guadalajara.
Yeah, I lived there in the late 60s, early 70s. I had 2 children that went to the American school there.
Oh, yeah. I know that there's a large American enclave there.
Oh, yes. A lot of retired people. There's, which I wasn't retired back in the 60s, which I'm ancient now, but I would be really ancient if I was retired then. But there's a huge enclave of Americans and also Canadians and also Cubans who wanted to get into the United States at that time and couldn't. So they went to Mexico instead.
Yeah. Now, were you around, I think it's Lake Chapala that's there?
No, I know where Lake Chapala is. I lived in a part of Guadalajara called Chapalita, but it was just, that was just the name of the neighborhood. But I remember when the Cubans that lived a couple of houses down from me, the Cuban family, lovely people, they were so excited when the Americans landed on the moon that they had a huge party.
Oh, and, wow.
I was the guest of honor because I was the American. They were congratulating me like it was something I had done. And I was like,
oh, how
it was
nice.
difficult, but you did it somehow.
It was really very nice. Very lovely people. Everybody there was super happy. I don't imagine that if you had lived in Russia at that time, everybody would have been super happy and
Oh
congratulating you.
no.
That was pre-fall
Yeah,
of
yeah,
Russia
yeah.
by quite a few years, actually. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. But that's really interesting, and
Mhm.
well, that gives you a really great background for writing
Yeah,
stories.
yeah.
However, I just want to bring this up because I happen to love Sherlock Holmes. Who doesn't
Oh
love
wow.
Sherlock Holmes? And for you to be writing those books to me is like just brilliant. And you wrote this one, Life and Times of Sherlock Holmes.
Hmm.
That's fabulous. Did you have to do a lot of research for that?
Well, these are actually, I'll tell you how these books came about. My goal, I actually was working on a fiction series. Um, the the whole series is called The Early Case Files of Sherlock Holmes. I was on the treadmill one day working out while I was at my office. Well, you know, eh, just my government job, and I used my lunch hour to work out, and I was working out, and I started thinking, how did Sherlock Holmes become Sherlock Holmes? Because there's very little information in the original books, which are referred to by Sherlockians as the canon,
Yes.
and 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 I decided, and I started thinking, well, the typical answer would be something like his father, something about his father, training him or something. And I thought, what if it was his mother? What if his mother was? We know that Sherlock Holmes had an incredible intelligence and very logical, and we know that his brother Mycroft might have even had a higher one, except that he wasn't one to go out and chase criminals or anything. He would have thought about it and said, this is the guy, but he would not have chased after him if the guy took off, left the room or whatever. And so I thought, well, what if it was his mother? And she has her intellect is just as brilliant as her son's. But as a woman, she wouldn't have been able to do the kinds of things that men could do at that time. And it would have been difficult for her to go out and investigate crimes. So what if she taught her children to do it?
Brilliant.
Well, and so that's where this series comes from. We start off with Sherlock Holmes at age 13, and his mother is accused of murdering the village midwife, and he's got to solve the crime before she hangs.
Is it
Yeah.
this book? The
Yes.
Adventure of the Murdered Midwife?
Yes.
Brilliant. That's wonderful.
But to write that book requires a lot of research into Victorian times.
Yes.
So, and since he's 13, we're talking about 1860. I have to do the math right. 1867, because Sherlockians believe that there's a reference in one of the books that that he was. I think he was. I can't remember what age that he said he was. And if you do the math, that meant he was born in 1854.
Okay.
And so he would have been, to be at 13. He would have been. That would have been 1867. So I pulled the clues that I could find from the original canon. There aren't a great deal, but he says his ancestors were country squires. And we know that he had a brother named Mycroft, and there's a reference that that suggests that his father's name was Siger, Siger, and we don't have any clue. And that his grandmother was the sister of Vernet, and Vernet is a French portraitist. He makes a reference to having art in his blood, and so with those clues, you can figure out a lot. But I needed to do a lot of research, like what in the world was a country squire and things like that. And so I started the research, and I thought, this a lot of this research would be good for other people as well. There are other
Mhm.
people that would be interested in Victorian times and Sherlock Holmes.
Right.
And so and the Sherlockians are extremely organized. Are you familiar with the Baker Street Irregulars?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's the mothership. That's the organization that was formed in the 1940s.
Uh-huh.
And then there are local chapters or scions throughout the country and the world, and they can be recognized by the Baker Street Irregulars, the main organization. And so I started writing to all the scions that I could find that had newsletters, because one of the things I thought is I've been in other organizations, and to me, one of the things that's always difficult is finding content for your newsletter. Sometimes, you have to beg somebody, please write an article or
Right.
write
Right.
something up. And so I thought, what if I handed them each month a short essay about something about the Victorian times that's mentioned in the canon. And so that was I wrote to a number of them, and at one point, a few of them have gone by the wayside for different reasons. But they go all over the world. I send out an essay each month. But not everybody is in a scion. Not everybody gets a newsletter. So I decided, well, I'm going to put these essays together into little books. And they are little, because my essays aren't very long. They're between 500 to 800 words, just a few pages.
And so is that
this is one. This is the first volume.
And then this.
And then you have two more volumes.
1, 2, and 3. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The blue one also includes an article that I wrote for the Baker Street Journal, which is the Baker Street Irregulars journal or official publication. And and that one is on the villainesses in the canon. There are 14 women, and I do an examination of what kinds of villainesses they were. So and that's included in the blue one.
Was that well received? I mean, did they love all those essays? I bet they did. I'm sure they did.
I'm still selling. Yeah. I mean, the newsletters are very happy to get them.
I bet.
And I tried to, I'm a sociologist. I have a PhD in sociology. I try not to do shoddy research. I try to do, they're all footnoted, and I try to, show a little bit of humor as well.
Yeah. I love research that has citations. I love it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like to do research too. So when I read a book that has
so much,
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I do believe I'll have to admit, originally I did a lot of Wikipedia, the first couple essays. I quit that.
Go ahead and get a drink of water.
Yeah.
We will wait. I do that when I talk a lot too, Lisa. So
well, I told you about all the wind. It stirred up a lot of dust and pollen and everything.
It does that.
So,
yeah.
It's terrible, isn't it?
Well, that's really fascinating. I mean, that's really, I love that. So when you did this, The Adventure of the Murdered Midwife, we find Sherlock is now 13 years old. His mother is accused of murder, and he has to find out who actually murdered the midwife. We know he's brilliant. So we see him for the first time actually using that great brain of his.
Yeah. with some excuse me.
Sure.
With some direction from his mother where possible.
I'm sure a lot of direction from his mother. He was only 13, though. Most 13-year-olds think that they're old enough to do just about anything. And Where did you set that? Where in the country? Because he was from a street squire.
I'll be honest.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Okay, so it was just generalized.
Over there somewhere.
Just in
Yeah.
the country. Okay.
Someplace far enough that you have to take a train to get to London.
All right.
There you go.
Okay. Good.
And my greatest fear is getting it wrong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I understand.
I would say it's in the southern part of the country, but
Yeah.
Probably not very far east.
no.
No. Not very far anyway.
Well, okay. So then that brings us to, nope, that's your third book, right?
No, that's the second.
That's second.
That is the second. Okay. The Adventure of the Murdered Gypsy. How old is he now in this book?
He's still 13, but he turns 14 at the end of the book. This one takes place at Christmas.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
it takes just a year to read it?
No.
Oh.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And
this one is a few months later at spring holiday in London. So he's still 14. In this one, somebody that Mycroft knows floats to shore on the Thames just after the Oxford Cambridge boat race, which happens to occur over the spring holidays.
We'll assume the person was dead, not just floating. Okay.
No, he was dead. And there's a concern that it's a suicide. Now, he is a nobleman, and if he were to be, according to what I've read, if a nobleman anybody who commits suicide, all assets return to the government or return to the government treasury, and it's supposed to be a deterrent for suicide victims, but it could leave the family destitute. And so his sister is very concerned that the family's going to be left destitute. So she goes to the Holmes family and she says, if you don't help me prove that this is a murder, I'm going to ruin Mycroft's reputation.
Oh.
And so
a little bit of blackmail there.
And so they have only a few days before the coroner's inquest to make sure that it's a murder.
That's really well thought out. I really like that. And I'm sure that Sherlock Holmes fans would love it too, because I love all of the stories that have been written about Sherlock that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle never wrote. I especially like it when Mycroft is involved. I like the way people have played upon that relationship and the way that they picture it and talk about it. I really like it.
Yeah. Well, with a 7-year age difference, Sherlock is 13, Mycroft is 20.
Right, exactly.
So I make Mycroft, view, he's not above calling his brother a twit.
Right. Which is what a lot of the books have portrayed them as having a contentious relationship.
Yeah. At the same time,
love underneath.
Yeah.
Yep.
At the same time, there's love underneath.
That's what I like about it. It's really, really awesome.
That's good.
Yeah.
Why don't we break for commercial?
All right.
Give you a chance to rest your throat a little bit, maybe take a few more drinks, and we'll come
see
back
what I can do.
Three or four minutes. There will be a book giveaway after the commercial, so
stay tuned.
Everybody,
people.
stay tuned, and see you in a couple minutes.
Okay.
Hey, look at us! We've got a new store.
Yeah, we do. It's pretty exciting.
What can you find there?
We have a number of designs available on t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, laptop and phone cases, pillows, and new designs are coming in all the time.
Sounds like a great place to shop for authors and readers.
Yeah, and it's easy to find. It's simple. Just Visit indiebooksource.com, click on the store tab, and you're there.
Many secrets are hidden within the darkness of the jungle. Behold, this one about a man, a woman, a black jaguar, and an ancient Maya legend. Two Faces of the Jaguar is a novel by George Dismukes that will take you deep into the jungle and capture your imagination until the last word. Two Faces of the Jaguar is book one of a trilogy. Two Faces of the Jaguar, where only the adventurous dare to read.
Two Faces of the Jaguar, The Lost City, and The Jaguar's Quest are available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites. Two Faces of the Jaguar, the book people are talking about. Get your copy today.
At Indie Book Source, you can shop by genre or by author, and you will be buying direct from the author's main purchase link. We offer hundreds of titles in formats that include ebooks, paperback, hardbound, and audiobook. Support an indie author. Visit indiebooksource.com today. WLFE Digital Broadcast Network presents Variety Unlimited Television. Watch shows like Meet the Author Podcast, The Bipolar DM, Just Cindy, Card Pulls and Coffee, Unfiltered Talk with Bryce, and more. That's right, our shows are your shows on WLFE Digital Broadcast Network. And now, back to the show. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
I'll see how my cough does now.
Okay, well, let's talk about your book giveaway first here.
Okay.
Get that out of the way. The first 3 people to email Lisa at lisasherwoodfabre.com will win an ebook copy of The Adventure of the Murdered Midwife.
Yes, and we just heard what that book was about.
Mhm.
Sounds fascinating. And anyone that loves Sherlock Holmes, and who doesn't love Sherlock Holmes? I mean, I love
Seriously.
him.
Where else
We'll
can
want it.
Where else can the audience find Lisa?
Oh, that was a good, really good. All right, here's some places where you can reach Lisa. Her website is www.liesesherwoodfabre.com. That's www.liesesherwoodfabre.com. Now, I'm not going to spell it out for you guys, so pay attention. Facebook is lisa.sherwoodfabre. And her Twitter is an easy handle. It's at lsfabre. And her email you just heard, but we'll repeat it again. It's Lisa at lisasherwoodfabre.com. And go there now if you want to win a copy of that book.
And also, there you can sign up for my newsletter, and you get a free short story.
Excellent.
Great. Sounds like a win-win.
Yeah. And if you like me, if you follow me on BookBub and let me know, there's another Sherlock Holmes short story duet that's only available for those who follow me on BookBub.
Oh,
You just have to let me know.
that's
Unfortunately,
really great.
BookBub does not give me your email address, or fortunately, probably for those who. But if you'll follow me on BookBub and then email me, I'll send you a short story duet.
Oh, that's very nice. That's a really good thing. And I'm sure people will be interested in doing that.
Yeah, I hope so.
Is that bookbub.com?
I I guess. I don't know. I just put in BookBub and it goes there.
Yeah,
so.
Google it. Google it. There you
Google
go.
it. You'll find it.
It's there. It's there.
So you want to tell us about what you're working on now? Is there anything coming down the pike that people can look forward to?
Yes. I have book 4 or case 4 of the Sherlock Holmes series coming out. It's been, I've gotten comments back from editors, and I need to get that finished, some additional work done on it, but it'll be out in 2022. I'm not sure when, but shortly.
Good.
And in 2022, it takes place in Paris.
Interesting.
The Holmes family goes to visit their French relatives, the Verneys. They're in Paris, and we find out that the connection to the Verneys is through his mother. His mother is Violette, and we've learned that she had quite a past in Paris. She, as far as a Victorian woman goes, she was quite racy. But that's France, right? So we know the French.
Everybody's racy in France.
Yes.
so that we can forgive her for that.
Yes. And it's called The Adventure of the Purloined Portrait.
Oh, I love that title.
That's good, right?
I think using purloined in a title is always an excellent choice.
It's kind of, and you got to work it in right. So, yeah.
Yeah. And there's a reason why it's the purloined portrait and why it connects up with the Verney family. And people who know Sherlock Holmes will get that.
Oh, yeah. They get to visit the Louvre, and there was an awful lot of research that I had to do for this one as well. Finding out about Paris in 1868 was quite a. I was very lucky there. I actually found a guide for English tourists to Paris in 1868. Believe it or not, an 1868 guide to Paris.
Wow.
So
now,
that made it a little bit easier.
Now, you lived in a lot of different places. Did you live in Paris for a while too?
No, I haven't lived in Paris. I visited. Okay. In fact, that was the last place we went before COVID.
Okay.
We were there just, it would have been January. I mean, I was sitting, I would watch the news on my iPad at night. And there were these things going on about some virus in China and people but I had no idea what that meant for all of us.
Right. It's insane to think about
how much the world shifted.
The world. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're lucky you got back when you did.
Oh yeah. Well, it was before, things.
The lockdown was in March.
Not until March, but still, that was pretty close.
Yeah.
A
lot of people got stuck.
But while we were there, they were having a public transportation driver's strike. The bus drivers were on strike. Wow. And we actually couldn't get back to we had an Airbnb apartment. And we were on one side of a demonstration, and we couldn't get to our apartment because the demonstrators were marching down the street between us and the apartment.
Oh man.
So we wound up sitting in a bistro for several hours, waiting for the demonstrators to make it all the way through. And the police were all in riot gear, and every once in a while one would come in and use the restroom.
Oh my goodness.
Bistro. It was very interesting.
Yes. Yes. Especially sociologically speaking, I'm sure you found it really interesting. Yeah. You were living the life, seeing it.
There it was.
Not as a tourist, but real life.
Yeah.
Did you get to see Notre Dame? Were you able to go into it at all?
Just for I could see. I have pictures of the scaffolding.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the first time I'd been to Paris, so I'd been to Notre Dame before.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad that they were able to stop it. I'm glad that they're able to, at some point, they're going to be able to restore it completely, I think.
Right. Right.
It would have been a loss, a true loss.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember I think the whole world stopped and just watched.
Yeah.
It was horrifying to see such an iconic
Yeah.
piece of history to be on fire like that.
Yeah.
Just horrible. It was heartbreaking, really.
Yes. Yes.
Because it was beautiful.
Yes.
And had so much artwork in it.
Yes.
Just incredible. But I understood they got a lot out.
I hadn't heard that, but that's good to know. Yeah.
Yeah. I heard that they got a lot out. I mean, people were, running in and saving things and risking their lives to get all this, this stuff out. Yeah. But I understand why,
Yeah.
Firemen are firemen everywhere. They're all heroes.
Yes, they are. They are.
Well, that is really interesting. That's really fascinating. It's funny to think about pre-COVID because everything has changed so much now. It's like we have a little dog, as some of you may have heard her barking a little while ago, and we had to take her into the emergency vet around 5 o'clock this morning. She was in a great deal of pain, and we had to call 3 different emergency veterinarians before we were able to get into one. And the veterinarian that we saw said that they're having trouble staffing. Then a lot of veterinary clinics have shut down because they can't staff because of COVID. And I said, because of COVID? And she said, I know it sounds weird, but she said, I think it's because of all the stress that people are going through. That the veterinarians, if they're women, are staying home with their children, and if the techs are women, they're staying home with their children. We're seeing a lot of that happening around the country. So yeah, I can't wrap my mind around about how much it's changed.
Yeah.
So many.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a different world. I think everybody is going to talk about pre-COVID and post-COVID. My husband one day was saying, you talk about the millennials or you talk about the baby boomers, and what do you think this generation is? And I said, COVID. He says, oh yeah. That's
COVID generation.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awful.
Well, but I mean, it's going to define, it defines so much about their world. When you think about school, my husband keeps saying, I don't understand this thing about the concern about kids not learning as much because learning remotely and things like that. He says, that's the way I like it the best. And I said, well, I can understand you, but I'm watching our grandchildren, and and I had a granddaughter who was sick and was taking some course doing school remotely for like about a week, and not just her. I mean, I was like standing over her, making sure that she was paying attention and stuff. But there was this one, the teacher was saying to somebody else who was on remote, saying, you've got to turn your video back on. If you don't turn your video back on, I'm going to have to mark you absent. Because I don't know that you're paying attention. I could see some kids that seem to thrive that way. Some of them, answered the teacher would ask a question and they would answer it and everything, but not my granddaughter. And I love her dearly, but that was, I could tell that she's not one for remote learning. She really needs to have that personal interaction.
Yeah. She wasn't engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
We homeschooled our 2 youngest children. We have 6. We homeschooled our 2 youngest, and almost all of our grandchildren, and we have 14 of them, were homeschooled. And and have gone on to college and everything like that. So it didn't affect any of our grandchildren at all. But we have plenty of friends with children and grandchildren that it did affect.
Well, and it did affect some of our grandchildren with their extracurricular activities that they had, like, karate and that sort of thing. They couldn't do that anymore. So their friendship and bonds have all changed and have suffered from it.
It's going to be really hard for all of the kids during this time, I think. And I don't think everyone is can learn the same way. There are many different learning types. When I first started homeschooling, we happened to live in California, and there's they call her the grandmother now. She used to be the mother of homeschooling, Kathy Duffy. And I happened to be in the same group as her. So I got to learn from her and found out there are 4 different types of teachers, the way they communicate, and 4 different types of learners, the way they receive that communication. And, it's fascinating because you have to teach to that student. So sometimes in a classroom situation, some kids are going to get left out of that. So I can see where it would benefit some children to be homeschooled and benefit other children to be, like you said, your granddaughter needs to be engaged with that person, and maybe even needs to be engaged with the students around her, depending on the type of learner that she is, that would be a benefit to that person. Yeah. So it's interesting. The whole COVID thing is interesting. Yeah. And I wonder what kind of books we're going to be seeing coming from it. It'll be interesting to see that too. Because we'll hear, there will be books about it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's going to be a while. People are, we're still in it.
And,
hasn't gone away.
Yeah. We're too much in it to write about it right now, except all of our angst.
And actually the Russian book, Saving Hope, it actually deals with bioweapons.
Does it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. She's a microbiologist, and the Iranians want her to develop a vaccine.
Okay.
Against another a bioweapon.
Here's the book that Lisa's speaking about. Saving Hope.
And she's willing to consider going to Iran and working on the bioweapons program that they have there because of her daughter who is sick. Her daughter is Hope, Nadezhda.
Oh, my goodness.
So Saving Hope is, and she stumbles onto a plan to export a bioweapon to Iran. And that's where she comes. That's where she has to decide, am I going to save my daughter or the world?
Wow.
So was that, did you say that was your first book?
Yeah, that was the first published. It wasn't the first one I wrote. The first one I wrote is under my bed. Well, metaphorically, it's not, we don't do that anymore, but actually that one actually was printed out and sent out to people. That's how long I've been working on this. In this career, that I actually used to have to mail out manuscripts.
Yeah, and, I remember that.
I was going through something and I found still have some manuscript boxes that I had bought sometime. That I don't know what I'm going to do with them now. They're not. Nobody needs it. Nobody ships them.
They're artifacts.
Maybe that's what I should do.
I was thinking as you were speaking that my one grandmother, my Irish grandmother, well, never mind. One of my Irish grandmothers, Lillian Donovan, was born in 1854.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Wow. I was like,
she probably knew.
She probably did.
Yeah. Probably did. They may have shared beds in the hospital together.
There you go, or something like that.
Incubators.
Yeah. Well, she was Irish, and he was British. But I thought, well, that's crazy. That's pretty interesting. And I often think about how much times have changed since my grandparents were born and what they lived through. All of my grandparents lived through the Spanish flu, and never talked about it. They talked about the Great Depression, never talked about the Spanish flu. And now that we're going through COVID, I'm thinking, why the heck didn't they ever talk about that? I mean, that must have been horrifying. They went through the same thing that we're going through now. They had to wear masks and everything.
Yeah. I think the difference was, or I think some of the differences are that the Spanish flu really didn't attack. Normally flus attack young people and old people, but the Spanish flu really had an effect on those that are in their 20s to their 50s, something along in there. It had there's a fascinating book that I read years ago about the Spanish flu. Don't even ask me the name because I can't tell you the title. But having worked for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the U.S. specifically within the U.S. Public Health Service, I wasn't part of the Commission Corps, but most of the people I worked with were part of the Commission Corps, which is an uniform branch of the U.S. government, uniform branch of the military. They dress like the Navy. Their uniforms look like those for the Navy. And you read about what the U.S. Public Health Service was involved with and what they were doing. Then the epidemic actually brought Johns Hopkins University into the forefront. They were one of the ones that really were involved in the epidemic and identifying people. A lot of this was passed around because of the military. We were still in World War I, and they had soldiers that would get sick, and they would ship them to different bases and stuff, and then overseas. And that was actually where a lot of it came across. A lot of it was spread that way as well.
Yeah, my grandfather
I'm not
fought.
surprised that. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say my grandfather fought in World War I, and he was in France. But I don't think he ever. I know he didn't get the Spanish flu. So, but I can see where that could happen.
Yeah,
where you could bring it back. It's fascinating. It really is. When you think of when you said what Sherlock Holmes' age would be, and I know what my grandparents saw, they went from gas lights to electric lights, to no telephones, to telephones, to no planes, to jets, and even, well, my grandparents were long-lived, so they even got to see computers. But that's amazing. That's an amazing amount of time, that those last 100+ years.
Right.
Yeah.
We've done great leaps.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of that I discuss in those little essays in Life and Times of Sherlock Holmes.
Because it's fascinating, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It is. It's just fascinating.
I have to say I tried not to make them dry.
Right.
I tried to make little tidbits that people can, lots of trivia. And I try to bring it sometimes all the way up to present day, bringing in research that's been done more recently and things like that. Yeah.
This is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So we have just a few more minutes left. Sure. Let me put you on the spot.
Oh, dear.
Sure. What kind of advice would you give? There's a lot of wannabe authors out there, budding new authors just trying to get started and running into all sorts of problems. What kind of advice in just a couple of minutes would you be able to give them, or words of encouragement?
Yeah. First of all, I was there once. And like I said, I've got that one manuscript that's metaphorically under my bed. I think the things that is learning about your craft and there are lots of ways of doing it. For myself, one of the things that was most important was taking creative writing courses through the junior college. and you can take at that school, at our community college, you could take them either for credit or non-credit.
Yep.
And sometimes like the non-credit part would be full, and I take it for credit. I mean, I took it. I can't tell you. They offered short story. They offered novel, and the only one I never took was memoirs, because I just wasn't interested in writing a memoir. But they rotated, and so I went several years taking those classes.
Probably a lot of people can do that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. A lot of people could do it online now.
Yeah.
On the courses are probably offered. Yeah.
I'm
sorry.
Before it was, you would read and it got you over being scared of having other people listen to your work.
Oh,
because you had those people. There also, I would encourage people to look at local writers groups, because that's I did all of this. Okay. I did the courses. I would go to local writers groups. Romance Writers of America was one. There's also Mystery Writers of America. There are others. Science fiction, I think, is out there as well.
Oh, yeah.
And it's and you have speakers as well as in meeting other writers, because writing can be a very lonely thing, and this is an opportunity for you to meet other people. And nobody understands a writer better than another writer.
Exactly.
That's true.
And just keeping up with your craft and learning your craft, and keep writing. That's what I would encourage people to do.
Perfect.
Start and then keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't just talk about it or think about it. Start.
Yeah. And the most important thing is putting it down on paper. That's the other thing I learned. You can't edit a blank page.
No, you cannot.
So it doesn't have to be perfect. You just get it down, and then you can edit and fix it. But the first thing is to get it down.
There you go.
And we all have to edit.
Yeah, boy, that's for sure. That's the fun part.
Rewriting. Yes.
Okay. Well, here we are. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Oh, well,
Glad you could join us tonight.
Like I said from the beginning, I really appreciate your podcast, and I thank you very much for letting me be a part of it.
Well, you're very welcome.
We appreciate you being on the show, and I am sure that all of our listeners are sorry that they didn't get to ask you the questions that they wanted to, but I hope that we did that for you.
Right.
And we're so glad that you were able to be on the show. It's been wonderful.
And if they have any questions, they can always email me.
Yep.
I'd be glad to
sign up
listen.
for your newsletter and learn more from you that way.
Sure.
Okay, well, I'm going to move you over to the side here while we close out. So
all right.
Let me see here if I can.
No, you're going the
wrong
way.
Going the wrong way. There, catch you over there.
Okay. Oh, I see what you meant.
Okay, so do you have any parting words?
Nope, I can't think of any.
No words of wisdom?
I do. If you're going to read a book, would you please leave a review?
Yes.
And when you leave a review, would you please tell why you enjoyed the book and what you liked about the book, so that people who have the same likes will know, oh, this would be a good book for me.
Very good. Next week should have, if we're still on schedule, which we hope to be, Orlando Sanchez will be on, and it'll be live. And then the week after that, on the 24th, will be right before Thanksgiving, Adam Gaffin. And that's going to be pre-recorded. So one more live show before Thanksgiving. And I guess until next time.
That's all, folks.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-DV.com.
You've been listening to WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.